Hey there, Knicks fans. The NBA season does not let an injury rule out your bet. Other sportsbook let injuries box you out, but Fanatics Sportsbook's fair play protects all bets from first half injury. So if your player goes out with an injury, Fanatics keeps your bet on the court. Make the switch and get more ways to win with Fanatics Sportsbook. Winning, it's different here. All right. Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. My name is Jonathan Macri, and I am here to talk about a game against the Orlando Magic. Final score 133-121. And there's no use beating around the bush. No use trying to bury the lead. No use trying to call it any way like it other than like it is. That was embarrassing. That was an embarrassing effort by a team that certainly has excuses at the moment. They are down bad in terms of injuries. Noah Giannonobi, you can make the argument he is as important to this team as Jalen Brunson and more important to this team than anyone else. No Deuce McBride, who has been a linchpin to successful basketball really over the last 2 years here. And no Landry Shamet. And we're going to talk more about Landry Shamet as this night goes on because I said, boy, I hate it when I'm right sometimes. We said after the last game, where would this team be without Landry Shamet? And yeah, it's a thing that sounds good on a post-game live stream and it makes probably for a good social clip. Here's the problem. I meant it. And it was a scary thought at the time. And it's an even scarier thought now. But even when a team is down bad, and the Knicks are down bad right now, and they are a top-heavy team, they were always going to be a top-heavy team. There's no, we know what the formula for this team is for success, and nothing I'm going to say tonight or nothing that happened tonight in this game, I don't think we should be drawing too many large-scale conclusions from it in terms of what this team is capable of come spring, April, May. I'm going to, tough to utter the word June after watching that effort tonight, effort in air quotes. But, there was a certain coach I remember who used to say something along the lines of you build habits during the regular season and you hope that those habits will get stronger and stronger and eventually be there for what you plan to be a long playoff run. The habits that we saw tonight from this Knicks team and in the fourth quarter in particular are not habits that we are used to seeing around here. They quit. Plain and simple. They quit. And do they have excuses again for quitting? Yeah, I get it. You're playing a big, nasty, physical team that is feeling itself and has been feeling itself ever since Bane hit that shot. And I watched the end of that game too against Portland. And it was a crazy ending to a pretty competitive game. And I think something happened to this team when that shot went in. And I know they lost to Houston the other night. I watched most of the game. They have, I don't want to say flipped the switch, but they are playing like the team many people expected them to be, which is an offense that is in a different league than the offense that we've seen for the last 15 years. And the defense that is still big and nasty and physical. And, we'll let Magic post-game shows have their own Paolo Banchero conversations, but I will just say I don't know that loss has necessarily hurt them. Enough about the Magic. This is about the Knicks. And the Knicks are an NBA team. And they are supposed to be a good NBA team and maybe even a very good NBA team. And when you have the level of expectation on you that the Knicks had coming into this season, I think there is something inherent that you have to be able to call upon when you want to call upon it, if you need to call upon it, to dig deep inside yourself and find something when the chips are down. And look, because here's the thing. I get it. This team knows it's probably going to be there in May, and this team has almost scaled the mountaintop already. They have repeatedly been to the second round of the playoffs, and last year they made it one round further than that. They probably know that they will be able to turn on the Jets when it matters. But that doesn't really give me much confidence tonight when I am trying to think about what this team is and the habits that they are forming, because of the fact of the matter is the team that went to the conference finals last year and the scrappy ragtag bunch of, we don't have anyone healthy tonight and we're still going to fight you tooth and nail to the very end. That team, the 23-24 team that this city fell in love with in February and March and April into May, even though they didn't have any healthy bodies. Those teams had good habits. Even last year's team, which was such a slog to watch at times because their offense could not get out of its own way. I could count the amount of times on one hand, and I'd be honest with you, I can't sit here and recall a ton of them right now, when I looked at last year's team and was like, oh yeah, they quit. And God knows I never said that about the team 2 years ago, despite the fact that if any team had any right to quit, it was that team after OG went down and after Julius went down and Jalen was banged up and DiVincenzo missed a game and Hart missed a game and Mitch was not even back yet. It didn't matter. Didn't matter who they had. Didn't matter if they had 6 healthy guys. They would go out there and they would give you hell. And if you have a team with aspirations to go to the finals, you would love them to have that extra gear where, you know what, when the chips are down, we know how to summon it. And I actually felt that way watching them in the first half. I know the Magic scored 1 million points. I know the defense wasn't good. And there were some culprits I thought that stood out more than others in the first half as far as why the defense was not good. But I can't even, it would be disingenuous of me, at least in this monologue, to call out anyone in particular after this game, because what happened over the course of the second half of this game, and in particular the fourth quarter, that was a team effort. That was a team-wide, we're done with this shit. We're moving on. And you know what, I think we had another game at some point this season where we watched them deliver a questionable effort level. Oh, you know what it was? It was actually the last Magic game where they were on a back-to-back. And we watched them deliver a questionable, maybe not a questionable effort level, but like they got punched in the mouth and they didn't punch back. This team has had 2 days off. 2 days off. And you watch them again, in particular in the second half. Like, you know what honestly came to mind, and this is really sad and troubling, was there was a possession in the middle of the fourth quarter. Let me actually rewind. There was a game the Knicks played, it seems like a while ago now, it was like a week and a half ago, against the Memphis Grizzlies, in which at one point, I forget honestly who the Knick was, but someone came around a screen and there were like 3 Grizzlies around the paint that stood around and watched as someone went up for a layup or a dunk. I forget what Knick it was. But like everybody from the Grizzlies stood around and watched. Timeout Memphis. And I remember watching that. I'm like, oh, this team is broken. This team is broken. And there was an exact play like that. At least one play. And there were a couple, one or two other plays bordering on that in the fourth quarter of this game, where it was just the compete level. There was no compete level. The compete level was for a professional basketball team that has designs on winning a championship. There was no compete level. The compete level was not acceptable. Now, am I going to say the same thing about them that I said about the Grizzlies whenever I saw that play, that they are a broken team? I can't go that far. And maybe that's me being kind. I I do think, though, that this is a team, and look, I'll go back to that 23-24 team. To a man, Ihart, DiVincenzo, Hart, Brunson, Deuce, Burks. You laugh, but Burks, precious. Then that season, absolutely precious. I'm sure I'm forgetting a key figure or two, but those are the ones. Bogey. There was no, like, you knew what every single one of those guys was about. As my daughter comes in here and she thinks she's going to jump on the bed. Glad she's happy. We're staying over my mom's in the city tonight in case you can't see from the backdrop. Been a while since I did something from here. Izzy, you got to be quiet. Those guys didn't know how to quit. Those guys did not know how to quit. And it made for not always the most enjoyable basketball, but I don't remember any game from January 27th of that year until they were eliminated in Game 7 at home against the Pacers where I felt anything like I do tonight. And then they started to change over the team. Cat came in, Mikal Bridges came in. Okay. Even last year, I think the gambit, the front office's gambit was that there's enough of our culture here that even if we're bringing in players who are maybe not quite cut from the same cloth as some of the guys who went out, and again, they couldn't help it with Hartenstein, we're still going to be able to retain enough of what made us us. And you know what? Honestly, I kind of think they did. And they made it pretty far. I'm just looking what Mike Brown opened his press conference. This is with James Edwards III. This is from Mike Brown. Obviously, tough game for us, but I got to keep preaching about it being the next man up. But in our case, it's the next man up, and next man up. Look, I get that from Mike Brown, and this is actually going to go directly into what I am saying. There is a breaking point. There is a there's a term that applies to this, and I always forget what the term is. But there's basically it's a slippery slope, and eventually you fall off of it. And yeah, if you want to say no OG, no Deuce, no Landry, and honestly, frankly, right now, as it applies to this team attempting to defend the basketball, no Mitch. The Mitchell Robinson that we're seeing out there that Orlando was hunting and targeting and picking on, that's not Mitchell Robinson. It's not the Mitchell Robinson I know. And you hope that guy is going to be back. The guy that used to be here, he's not here right now. So when you add, yeah, I get it. It is next man up. And I think Mike Brown is doing his team a solid by going out there and saying that. I got to tell you, and look, I get it. It's why up until the last up until like the 6-minute mark of the fourth quarter, I'm like, all right, going to keep it even keeled. I'm going to keep it even keeled for this post game. I know it's probably not going to make for great radio. I'm going to keep it even keeled. And then it got to a certain point where the guys that were out there, Tyler Kolek wasn't laying down and dying like a three-legged dog. Wasn't Muhammad Diawara out there in the fourth quarter unrolling the red carpet. It wasn't Ariel Hukporti. It wasn't Pacome Dadier. It wasn't any of these guys. It was the main guys. And I'll look right now and see how many minutes they played. I'm pretty sure nobody played that many. I mean, Towns was at 37, Bridges was at 38, Brunson was at 37. Okay. Guess what? You know how I know those guys can play that many minutes and stick with it until the final buzzer? Because they did it every fucking game that mattered last season. So don't give me that. Don't give me that as why we with 2 days off. No, those guys had enough. And they were like, to hell with this. I'm done. And that That is worrisome. Because, and just to get back to what I was saying before, you further change the roster this year. Now you bring in Clarkson. Now you bring in Yabusele. Again, 2 offense-first players. It was very clear how they were going to attempt to win a championship this year. It was going to be with offense, even more so than last year. They were leaning even further into it. And the plan was that their high-level defenders are going to be able to do enough to keep them upright on that end. Well, their best defender, OG Anunoby, did not play tonight. Their second best defender, Mitchell Robinson, is not Mitchell Robinson. Their third best defender, Mikal Bridges, look, Mikal has done some amazing things this year, and he's probably been their most consistent player from top to bottom from opening night until tonight. Offensively, I thought he was awesome tonight. Yet again, he's been awesome pretty much all year. He is, I'll just say it, he's past the stage of his career where he should be a team's best defender. And I think you saw that. And when you go up against a team like Orlando, you can't just stick Mikal Bridges on Franz Wagner and says, go, and say, go, cover him. Mitchell Robinson was on Franz because they didn't have any other choice. Mikal Bridges can't cover him, And then, who is their fourth best defender when healthy? Maybe Deuce. All right, he wasn't there, And then you get to Josh Hart, and then you get to everybody else. So no, they didn't have the bodies tonight. And if that's going to help you sleep at night, that's fine. I got to tell you, I don't know that it's helping me because these are still NBA players, and defense is still about effort more than anything else. And they just stopped trying. So the question that I find myself asking, turning kind of to the big picture, did this team sell a little bit too much of its soul over the last 2 years? Have they gotten a little too cute by half in trying to assemble, the perfect roster top to bottom? It's honestly an unfair conversation to have tonight because this isn't the roster. This isn't the roster, and I don't know when we're going to see the roster again, although I guess now at this point, the roster, in quotes, now includes Landry Shamet because, so it just does. He's one of their 7-8 most important guys, even if they're fully healthy, which is, again, crazy, but that's where we are. But, I've been going on for a while. I'll end with this. When you are a team that has that certain extra something that Orlando has right now, that Detroit has right now, that Houston has right now, it's a couple other teams that, OKC, that's comical what they have. But you don't even have to talk about them. You can talk about, some other teams. It's 1 through 15. It's 1 through 15, and it is a collective selflessness and pride. That's really all it is. It's just pride. When the chips are down, our compete level will still be there. And tonight, it just wasn't. Is that now part of their DNA? I hope not. I really hope not, because that would be a really discouraging way for this story to end. I don't think it is. I am, again, going to choose to not draw too many long-lasting, big-picture conclusions from this game because of who was not there. But you cannot wipe this away with, we didn't have OG, we didn't have Deuce, Landry Shamet got hurt. You can't just sweep this under the rug. Not with how they brought this one home. You can't do it. It's disingenuous and it's incorrect. So I'm not about to sit here and do it to start a post-game show, which, look, we could talk about whatever you want tonight. We could, if you want to get on certain guys, no one who played in this game tonight is above reprieve. And that's, I mean, yeah, some guys score. Jalen Brunson had a nice offensive game. Jalen Brunson's as big a part of the problem defensively as anyone. I got on Cat in the first half because I thought he stood out for me a little bit more than some other guys in the first half defensively. Jalen Brunson was worse, just as bad, if not worse, in the second half. And I'm naming them because they're the two best offensive players on the team, and they're the guys who are the two quote unquote weakest defenders. But nobody defended. So that's where we're at. And now it's up to them to figure out where to go from here, figure out what kind of team they want to be, and figure out, hey, are we just going to continue to let injuries be an excuse for us coming into games, and when we play a real opponent and the Magic are a real opponent, an excuse where, you know what? Tonight's not going to be the night for us. Is that what they're going to be? Or they'll look themselves in the mirror and say, because here's the last part, and I haven't said his name once. I don't even want to say it now. This would not have been a conversation under who. Because it just never was a conversation. Now they have to hold themselves accountable. Now the accountability has to come from within. Because there's no psychopath walking through that door. So let's see what happens.
Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See the Fanatics Sportsbook app.